In the Rambam, today's Rambam, Hilchos Sanhedrin, Perek Tezayin Halacha Vov. There is a very, very famous Halacha in Rambam about which there's a tremendous amount written. I want to touch maybe on maybe two nukudis about this Halacha. What is it we're learning in this Perek about Malchus? And in Halacha Daled, the Rambam said that in order that a person should be Nischayev Malchus, that's only if there's two Eidim with Hasra. Of them, Kumter and Halacha Vov, and he writes the following. Ein tzarich shnei edim lemalchus ela b'shas ma'isa. You only need two edim for malchus b'shas ma'isa. In other words, when the edim are coming to say is chayiv malchus. Avala isur atzmai be'ed echad yuchzok. But the isur itself is muchzak be'ed echad. In other words, if an eid echad says something is osur, it's osur. Eid echad nemen b'isur. And then later a person can get malchus for eating that if he eats that with in front of two edim. Even though the isur was established with one eid alone, that's fine, because the Easter is established with one eight, and then later the person eats it with two eitim, says chayiv malchus. Like the Rambam is mamshech ketza, omer echad, omer eid echad chaylev kloyis huzeh, kloy hakerem hein peiris elu. An eid echad says certain chaylev is also as chaylev kloyis, or a certain food is kilaya kerem. Grusha is zayna yishazu. This one was a grusha zayna. V'ochal a boal be'edim achar shehisra boi. The person then eats that food that's asur, or is boiled that isha that's asur after there was edim. Hareza leke. Afal pi sheikira isur be'edechot. Even though the ikira isur was established with edechot, it doesn't matter because the isur atzmoi be'edechot yuchza. The isur is established with edechot. Edechot and bisur, and then you do a ma'aser, you're chayiv malchus. That's the Rambam. Again, bavus the Rambam ha'isur atzmei be'edechot yuchza. And later you can get malchus if you do that Easter with two Eidim. The Rambam finishes by Medvar Mamurim Shlehikhi Sha'ed Be'ez Shekava HaIsur. When the Eid Echad says it's Asur, so the person wasn't makhish the Eid. Avli Momar Eine Chelev Zeh V'zu Eine Grusha V'achal Eibal Achar Sheikhish Eine Leke Ashiyikvu Isur Shnei Eidim Pashut. Because Eid Echad B'Isur, and if no one's arguing with him, but if the Eid Echad said it's Asur and the person says it's not Asur, so then Enechanami never became Asur. But this is the Rambam. This is the Rambam that Isur Atzmei Be'echad Yuchazak Be'efen, that even Acharkach, that afterward you can get Malchus for that Isur, because even though Malchus Betzim needs Shneidim, but that's when the Shneidim are coming to Mechayiv you Malchus. If an Eid Echad is coming to Mechayiv Malchus, it wouldn't work. But if the Eid Echad is just coming to say that the Isur is Asur, so the Isur becomes totally Asur, and later one can be Neschayiv Malchus even on that Isur. That's the halacha. This halacha repeats itself in Rambam in a couple of places. Dugmin Hilchos Gogis, Perek Gimel Halacha Beis, same idea. Omer le'id echad chaylev huzeh b'shasak, v'chazar v'acholi b'shgoga, mevichatos. An eid echad says something is chaylev, and then you ate it b'shegig, you're chayav Im hisru b'y leike alav, if he got hasra before he ate it, he's leike. Afal pisha ikra edus be'eid echad. Even though the ikra edus was only said be'eid echad, it doesn't matter. The Eid Echad made it asur, and later you can get malchus or bring a chatas on it. The same thing in the Hilchos Naziris, Perek Tes Halacha Yud Zayin. Same idea. Noag Nazirus al pi Eid Echad. An Eid Echad said he's a Nazir, and the person said fine. V'shasa yayin nitma. The person then drinks wine, gets tummy. V'hisru b'shnayim loike. Afal pi sheikir hanazirus be'Eid Echad. So we have the same halacha, Sayin Nazirus, Sayin Shgogis, and over here in Sanhedrin, you say that the Takim Malchus needs Shnayim, but to create an Isser, to establish an Isser, you need one, and then you can get Malchus on that Isser as well. There's also a halacha in Isser Ribiyah, Perek Aleph, that also goes in the same halacha. But this is a din that comes up in Rambam, Kama Vikama Pom. What's the Hasbora Sadover? What's the Hasbora of this din? The Chura Malchus needs Shnayim. If Malchus needs Shnayim, how are you getting Malchus over here on an Isser that's only an Isser based on an Eid Echad Neman B'Isur? Zogte Kesef Mishnah by uns auf unser Halacha. A short Kesef Mishnah. Nire Shalomad came that the Rambam learned this Mida Amrinon Eid Echad Neman B'Isurin. Umefarish Rabbeinu Neman Leser Hadover. A word from Kesef Mishnah. The Gemara says Eid Echad Neman B'Isurin. So if he's Nemon lesser hadover. If he's Nemon lesser hadover, so it's also. If it's also, you get Malchus on it also. A kurzer Kesef Mishnah. Beif in the Kesef Mishnah feels that the Rambam, the Kesef Mishnah says that the Rambam saw it in the words Eidach and Bisurin alone. That's what the Kesef Mishnah says by us. In Hilchas Shkogis, that I mentioned before, where the Rambam says the same halacha. So there you have a Mishnah Lamelech, Shtel sich auf der halacha. And he says, Din zen nilmid mi Yerushalmi, the Perek Shnei Nazirin. That this din is learned from Yerushalmi by Nazir. Heviu Rabbeinu Perek Tash Milchas Naziris. The Rambam mentions Hilchas Naziris, the Gabe the Nazir, that's doing Naziris al Peidacha. The Chen Kos Rabbeinu Bilchas Sanhedrin, our halacha. V'ayin b'masher kosav moron shom, shedvorov tmuhim, v'tzorach. Says the Mishnah Lamelech, see what the Kesef Mishnah wrote over there at Sanhedrin, the Kesef Mishnah we just wrote, with Dvarav Tmuin, and his words are very hard to understand. Interessant. So we have a Kesef Mishnah who says one has Bora in the Mocker of this Rambam, and he says, and the Mishnah Lamelech who says, Nish richtig. Elamai, it's a nilmad from Adina and Yerushalmi, where Yerushalmi says this halacha, that Ha'isar Atzmi B'edachad Yuchzak and Yuchayv and Malchus. And he says on the Kesef Mishnah that Dvar of Tmuin, that what the Kesef Mishnah said has thus leaked in Eidach Nam Bisurin is Dvar of Tmuin. What's Dingen Zezich? What's the Kesef Mishnah's Havana in this din? What's the Mishnah Lamelech's Havana in the din? And why is the Mishnah Lamelech feel that what the Kesef Mishnah says is Dvar of Tmuin? They're very, very Mikatzer B'Lashenim. The Kesef Mishnah says Mamish line, and the Mishnah Lamelech just says that the Makir is a Yerushalmi, not like the Kesef Mishnah Dvar of Tmuin. What's Gate of the Machlekes? In the Churib Shat Hazeh, the Kesef Mishnah says that yes, that Eidach Neman Bisurin. So if he's Neman Bisurin, so it's also Neman Bisurin. What was his lotion? Neman Lesser Hadover. So if it's also, then whatever happens later is also. That's what he says. In other words, you don't need a special makir, a special halacha, a special din. It's a davar pashut. That's what Eidach Neman Bisurin says. It says that Eidach what makes it also. So if the Eidach makes it usher, so then it's usher. If you're usher, you get malchus and a davar shalisur. That's the pasuk pshat. The Mishnah Lamelech says no. What's that? Eidach neman lisurin means he's neman liinyin isurin, which means he's neman legabi isur v'heter. Are you allowed to eat it or you're not allowed to eat it? That's what you're neman legabi. You're not then. Malchus has a different chashivus and requires a different darga of nemanus legabi malchus. Remember, the Tzemach Tzedek has very long shuvas in Yeridea, in Siman Shin Zayin, and Ebenezer, Siman Shin Zayin, Shin Tes, very long shuvas. And B'teich Advarim, he talks a lot about this Rambam. And the Tzemach Tzedek brings this, he explains in Siman, if someone wants to look it up, in Siman Shin Tes, in Eis Zayin. So he brings the Rambam and he brings the Kesef Mishnah, and he brings this Mishnah Lamelech, and he explains that what did the Mishnah Lamelech dislike about the Kesef Mishnah's answer? He says, Yeshleimar li isure himnei v'leila malchus. In other words, Ein Hachanami, he says, Eidach nemen bisurim. And Eidach nemen legabi isurim, zokt the Mishnah Lamelech. Fine, he's nemen legabi isurim, which means is it permissible or forbidden? But an Eidach is not nemen legabi malchus. Wo steht in Eidach nemen bisurim that he has an emonus klapi malchus also? Steht nicht as hazah. B'meila zokt the Mishnah Lamelech. Elamai, there's a mocker and a Yerushalmi that says that you can give malchus if there's an Eidach who said that the isur is also so you can give malchus on it, but that's like a special din that's nilmad in Yerushalmi. So liknish in the etzem Eidach nemen bisur. Al kopanim kumtes sehr interessant that it seems that the Kesef Mishnah and the Mishnah Lamelech will learn differently this din of ha'isur atzmei be'eidach yuchzak b'meila yikimin eschayev malchus. The Kesef Mishnah understood as selicht avort in Eidach nemen bisur. Says Eidach nemen bisurin. The pshat that Eidach has the full namanos to establish that something is usher. Period. Whatever happens afterward, it's usher. If it's usher, automatically you're neschayev in malchus. As they take us a Mishnah Gezen in the Vert Eidach nemen bisurin, he doesn't need a Yerushalmi. So licht in Eidach nemen bisur. The Mishnah Lamelech disagrees, and he says Eidach nemen bisurin means a nemanos liinyin isurin. He's nemanos legabi isur v'heter. I don't know that you're neman legabi malchus. Elamai, there's a makir mesuyim that you neman legabi malchus also, and that's a Yerushalmi. L'chera ken zayin zeira greiser nafkemina in Havana between these two drachim. That is, there's a whole deal in Achreinim. A lot talk about the Shaila. Fine, the Rambam says Isur Atzmei Be'ed Echad Yuchsa. And you can get Malkus based on it. What about Chiv Misa? What about if the Echad said that a woman is Asur, that later will be Nistaya for Chiv Misa from that Isur? Would you say Isur Atzmei Be'ed Echad Yuchsa? So Mela it's Asur. Now that it's Asur, later a person does this Aveda with two Eidim, so you Chiv Misa also. Just like Malkus, you can't get Be'ed Echad. But nevertheless, once Isur Atzmei Be'ed Echad Yuchsa, you can get Malkus. So al derech ze misa. Misa you can't get without two edim. But once a isur atzmei beidach yuchzak, it's a davar shel isur. So maybe later you can get misa also. Seichlan ala chazakis. Because once something is muchzak in a certain way, so there's a chiv misa also. And if you look, in the back of Rambam Frankel, he brings a list of marmakemis of achreinim that are done in this way. Lakan or lakan or lakan. I don't know hachrol or peil, but it's for sure a very big machlekes. If the din of isur atzmei beidach yuchzak would apply even legabi chiv misa. In Pasha, without going into Rayas Hinun Sirik, in Havana, it could be that this would be enough gemina between the Havana, how the way the Kesef Mishnah learned it in, versus the way that the Mishnah Malach learned it. The Kesef Mishnah learned a selikt als an ein word. Eidechon nemen bisurin. Some mele severta davar osur. Whatever happens afterward, it's already a davar osur. L'chura, the pashtus would be according to this, just like your nemon linyan malchus, your nemon linyan misa, because ha'isur atzmei be'echad yuchsak, eidechad said it's osur. Now this is a davar osur legabe anything that happens later. What's the difference malchus from misa? Mashenk in the day of the Mishnah Lamelach, which he didn't learn that. The Mishnah Lamelach learned fakert. There's a din of eidechnam bisurin that's a nemonus linyan misurin. That nemonus, I don't know if it carries malchus. No, Avdemada Yerushalmi, that this Nemanus is also good enough to bring a Chiyav Malchus later. That after the Echad said it was Nema Lagabi Yisurin, that Nemanus is enough to create a later you can Chayav Malchus. Good. I don't know if the Nemanus is strong enough to create later a Chiyav Misa. Chiyav Misa is bigger than a Chiyav Malchus. Afsheyesh Makam Lachalik, and there's Svaras Lachalik. They bring Svaras Lachalik in Misa and Malchus, which ain't kind of Malchus. But Al Kaponim, can sein, es ist totally in these zwei Wegen, in the pshat of Isur Atzmei B'dachad Yuchzak, because a Mishnah that's the etzem word of Eidechnam B'surin that is nemot to Aseret, legabe whatever happens later, can sein nebazil legabe Isur Misa'echet. Versus the Mishnah L'malach who says no, he's nemon li'inyin Isurin, and it's Nischadish and Yerushalmi also li'inyin Malchus that comes out from it later. I don't know about Chiyav. That's one ha'or. But quickly, one more ha'or is very interesting. Aside from the Etzem Chidush of the Rambam that he said, ask me B'dechad Yuchzak, and maybe you can get later Malchus, in this halach and Sanhedrin, that is the Rambam, when he brings the dugmois, he brings a dugma of Chelef, Achilas Chelef. He brings a dugma of Kilei Keren. And then he brings a dugma of Grusha Izena Ishaz. The Eidachot says this woman is a Grusha or a Zaina, which that would make her Osir for a Kohen. And this is also a mushal for a Isur Atzmei B'dechad Yuchzak. Mela she's neschazik as a grusha or a zena, and the mela kayin habola will be a chiyuv malchus. Da fragt sich die gewaltige Kasche. Grusha or zena is isuri ishus. Isuri ishus was hat das mit der Dachnam bisurim. This is a yinevin davar shvar bachas mishnai. Wie fällt das da rein in dem Rambam? Ha Isur Atzmei B'dechad Yuchzak is the Isur B'dechnam bisurim. But the Rambam suddenly brings as dugmois grusha and zena, which is l'chura Isur nisuin. Ain't there a shvar bachas mishnayim? Milchat chila de dechad has no namanus on this. Is wie fällt es da rein in the Rambam? Isur Atzmei B'dechad Yuchzak. I'm going to say a gewaltige kasha of dem Rambam. So to answer this kasha, I saw in the Samach Tzedek over here in Siman Shin Zayin in Eischof, two mahalchim. So one mahalach is an easy mahalach that the Rambam holds that Isuri nisuin of a kayin is not a get of the Rosh Hashanah. Isuri nisuin of a kain is an inyan of a lav. It's a lav. So maybe it's a gather of Isurin, not a gather of the Rosh Hashanah. Some Masada brings it from a Machin Ephraim, comes to that. After all Arichis, he says that Chidush. Once he brings it, there's a Shashmaitz, Vov, Ratzaching them. Kama v'kama nemenon, as Shitas Rambam is, that's probably the easiest path in this Rambam, that the Isuri Kuhuna, even though they're Isuri Chasnus of Kuhuna, but they're not together of Isuri Ishus, they're not together of Davar Sheba they're Isuri Lav, and they're looked at as a Medinian of Isurim. And they say it fits perfect. The Rambam is bringing Dugmois of Isurim, and Chelev, and Klaya Kerem, and Isuri Grusha Vezena. It's all together of Isurim, not Davar Sheba. That's very easy. But the Tzemach Tzedek is Machadish, and he says a beautiful another Mahalach in this Indian, and I want to share that. It says a Gevaldik word. I want to say the Nukudas Advarim. The Tzemach Tzedek is Meirich Kedarki B'Kodesh. I want to say the Nukudas Advarim. And he says like this: no, se can go design that is Davar Shebe'erva. But in Davar Shebe'erva Gufa, when is Ein Davar Shebe'erva Pachas Mishnayim? When you're coming to be moitzi someone from a marriage or answering them from marriage. In other words, the Davar Shebe'erva is being pale right now on Isur in Davar Shebe'erva. A person is married and you want to say that she's Mizana and she has to leave her husband, so you're being moitzi here from her husband. Or you're making a woman Asr al Kol Elam Kulei, she's ran Asr to get married. That's a Davar Shebe'erva that's being pale right now. Mashenkin over here, you say a woman is a Zayn or a Grusha. She can marry 1 million people. She can marry everyone who's not a Kain. So right now, what did you do? All you said was that Lehaba, if she'll marry a Kain, will be a Davar Shebe'erva. Heint is das nicht kein Davar Shebe'erva. Heint is das an Isur. She's not allowed to marry certain people. She can marry plenty of people for the rest of her life, and there will never be a problem. Das heißt nicht der Din von ein Davar Shebe'erva Pachas Mishnayim. In other words, in Davar Shebe'erva Gufa, there's when you're being pale the Davar Shebe'erva now, or when you're creating something that Lahaba might turn into a Davar Shebe'erva. Und das steht in dem Rambam. Now, late this Mahalach, the Tzemach Tzedek says that in Davar Shebe'erva Gufa, when is in Davar Shebe'erva Pachas Mishnayim? When the Shnayim are coming to be pale the Davar Shebe'erva now, not when the Shnayim are saying something which creates an Isur that later might turn into a Davar Shebe'erva. Tzemach Tzedek says Nochmer in the Gemara in Kedushin is Machlekes Abaye and Rav. Abaye says that even if a Eidach comes and says the Zinsa Ishtei, Abaye says it's in Neman. And Rava says ain't in Neman because ain't Davar Shebe'erva Pachas Mishnayim. So Tzemach Tzedek, we paskin like Rava that ain't Davar Shebe'erva Pachas Mishnayim and Meila and Eidachun is not Neman to say Zinsa Ishtei. But Hayes says Machlekes Abaye Rava, why go so far to say that ein Davar Shebe'erva Pachas Mishnayim even lifnei ha'maisa? Forget, well, paskin like Rava in the case of Zinsa Ishta. So the Eidachel is coming to be moitzi and Isha mibayla ein Davar Shebe'erva Pachas Mishnayim because he's coming to do now a maisa of Davar Shebe'erva. Mashenkein in the case of the Rambam, when the Eidachel is coming to say Grusha Hizu is Ein Hizu, which right now is not affecting any Isha Davar Shebe'erva. Right now she can still get married and live Kol Yameh B'Sholim. Narvas Lahaba, if she'll marry a Kohen, it will become a Davar Shebe'erva. Da ken zayin as Eidachel is Eichet now. As they zogt the Tzemach Tzedek with Arich is a beautiful new beer in this Rambam. Beifin the Sakatu Ifan. The way the Machna Ephraim, which the Tzemach Tzedek brings also, is that the din of Yisrael Asmi B'Eidachel Yuchzak is not by Eidachel and Bisurin, only by Eidachel and Bisurin. Ad Rambam says Grusha B'Zayin, that's because that's a Geder Bisurin, because Yisuri Kuna is not a Davar Shebe'erva. Oh, there's the Tzemach Tzedek Mechadish Asach Gresser. That in ein Davar Shebe'erva Pachas Mishnayim Gufa, then Zokman ein Davar Shebe'erva Pachas Mishnayim, when you're coming to establish right now the Isra of Davar Shebe'erva, you're coming to Meitzin Isha Mibayla, you're coming to ask her Isha from getting married B'chlal, then ein Davar Shebe'erva Pachas Mishnayim. If you're coming just to say an Isra which might become a Davar Shebe'erva, over here Zokman Ish ein Davar Shebe'erva Pachas Mishnayim. I'll be massive one word. Nu so Eba say, what's the hemshech of this halacha? This halacha is talking about two separate dinim. It's talking about din of Eidach and Bisurin, of Isser Asmi Yuchza, and a din of a Davar Shebe'erva that's lefnei, it becomes, the Pleil Mamash of the Davar Shebe'erva. I think, no, if I cared. This pshat gives a hagdara in this halacha. This halacha is not talking about Eidach and Bisurin. This halacha is talking about Malkis and Davar Shebe'erva. Malkis and Davar Shebe'erva are both in Yonim that you need two Eidim for. Av dem kommt der Rambam sagen, sei Malkis and sei Davar Shebe'erva. Eino Chanami, they need two Eidim. When the Eidim are coming to talk about the Malkis L'Payil and the Davar Shebe'erva L'Payil. But if they're talking about something that's a prerequisite, something that's earlier, that's going to affect the Malkis or affect the Davar Shebe'erva, then you don't need Shnayim. In other words, late this Mahalach, perhaps this halach is not a chidush in Hilchas. In Hilchas Eidach and Bisurin, it's a halacha in the din of Malkus and in the din of Davar Shebe'erva. That Einach Nami Malkus and Davar Shebe'erva both need Shnayim when the Shnayim are coming to deal directly with the Malkus. Create a Chiyav Malkus today, create a Davar Shebe'erva today. But when they're coming to say something that's going to affect lahaba malchus or lahaba davashaberva over there, taka israt will be dachat yuchzok. Does nicht gesagt geworden der Hagbole von der Sherpachs Mishnayim und von Malchus als Darfstein Steinmech.